Alright guys, good morning. Welcome to this installment of Mike's Vehicle Vlogs, and thank you for joining me today. Today is October 22nd, I believe, and we're making some headway on my '01 Pontiac Aztek. The heads were put on in the last vlog, finally, so we put on the heads. I covered it up so that way, you know, because of how nice they look, but both heads are on, and torqued down. Exhaust manifold, crossover pipe. Yep, we started it finally. And that's pretty much what we did in the last vlog. It was just preparing to get to this point, and then at the end of the last vlog, kind of showed you guys how to torque them all down and whatnot. But hopefully today, we will be getting all of the rest of this stuff back on the car. It would be really nice. I know in a lot of cases, trying to get something back together sometimes is quicker than tearing it apart. But people can do this job in a day, less than a day. I've never done it before, but I'm gonna do my best to obviously get as much done on this car today as I possibly can. So this is what we're gonna be doing. I also have to get the power steering lines hooked up. I never finished them. The one's up here, the other one is down there, and I have to finish putting it together. It's the return line, and then I have to attach the pump to those lines because we might be putting the pump on today. Hopefully those lines don't fight with me, but I gotta take this tire off and get the car up off the ground and then take the tire off, and then I'm gonna have to try to fish the rest of that line in there and bring it up to the top. In the meantime, I have the rockers for both heads. These are the rockers for the back head. Unfortunately, I didn't keep them in order. I didn't think I was going to use them, but as gross as they are, they may clean up a little bit nicer than the ones off the original, you know, head. And then these are the ones off of our newly purchased front head. So I'm going to go the route of using the purple power again. I bought a new bottle. And we'll let these soak a little bit, hose them off, dry them off, and then they're going to go straight into the heads. Same with the push rods. The push rods are gross. Now, as I stated in the last vlog, I'm not really going to film this entire rebuild process. I'm probably just going to show you guys just some of the important things here and there, like you know, putting these back in, putting the intake gaskets on, putting the intake on, and everything else, like, you know, the installation of some other parts. I'm not really gonna focus on that much because we're basically just working backwards from what we were doing when we were taking this apart. So I'll let those sit while I'm fishing those power steering lines, and then we'll hose them off real quick, try and dry them off, and then oil them up so that way they don't start rusting or anything. Then we'll throw them into the car. Okay, so I got that line hooked up finally, and they're running up over here. I'm not gonna put the pump back on yet. It was actually kind of nice having that additional room. We're gonna leave the car up anyway because I'm gonna have to go underneath here in a little bit, and we're going to reattach that engine mount brace. We also have to put the air conditioner compressor back on once that brace is in place also. Let's go check up on our rocker arms. Yeah, a little better. Alright. Here's how all the rockers for the front head came out. A little bit better. They at least, you know, have a little bit of a metallic color to them. Try to get what I could off, but I'm not 100% concerned about it. At least they just look cleaner than they did. And now I'm gonna do the back head. And these ones were gross. Like I said, these aren't gonna be in any particular order. I don't think it's gonna matter because I didn't think I was gonna be using these, but we're gonna use them. So all of the rockers are done. I'm just gonna let them sit and maybe just dry off a little bit. I don't think a little bit of water is gonna hurt if they go in there because we're gonna oil them up anyway. But these were gross. These were like brown caked and stuff, and these ones weren't too bad. They cleaned up nicely. A piece of rag on that one. So the push rods are actually a lot grosser than I remembered. So I'm gonna clean them one by one. Just, you know, for a couple minutes. I just put this one in there and we'll just wipe it off. But yeah, I mean, even pulling it out, it flaked all over, and I can't put these back in there like that. That's not good. Alright, you can kind of see a difference in the push rods so far. I mean, obviously didn't do any of the back ones yet, but the front ones are looking a lot nicer. Some of these I kind of put back in twice after wiping them off once because they were so caked in all this garbage. So I got the last one sitting in there right now. In the meantime, why don't we go ahead and head over to our sad Aztek. I started trying to organize the spark plug wires too. Those are nice looking spark plug wires. And let's go ahead and add our actual lower intake gaskets in. So these are the lower intake gaskets that came with this Velcro kit. Set that there. And I like these. I like the fact that they got the metal, pretty much like the metal bracing, and of course the rubber gaskets. So you can see on the back of this, there's these little rubber tabs there, and those tabs go into the holes on this side of the head. So this one's going to go in like this. You can see where the front, it says like the push rod guides. Push rods go down into these little beveled parts. So basically we just have to sit it on there and just ensure that we kind of push all these little tabs in. Alright, so from there we're going to get ready to put our push rods back in, and then we'll put our rocker arms over top of those. Now, before I even put the push rods or rockers in, unfortunately I don't have one of them little tiny oil squirt cans, but I'm going to just try and dump a little bit of clean oil into the cavities where the push rods go. I believe those are the hydraulic lifters down in there. So if we pour some oil down in there and then we put the push rods in, you know, it'll kind of keep this whole top end from being starved of oil once we try to start it up for the first time. And then I'm also just gonna maybe add just a little bit of oil around here, and then once we get our rocker arms in also, I'll put some oil on the rocker arms, so then that way everything up here has a little bit of lubrication, especially for how long this engine has sat, especially with no oil in it. We want to make sure it has just about everything it needs up top so to get everything pumping. This is probably going to be a mess, but there we go. Probably could have done this before we put these gaskets on, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference really. Nice and easy. Oh, not what I wanted to do. It made it to it though. Ah, no. I'm just gonna go straight across. There. That's not too bad. Oh. Oh, too much. Way too much. Oops. Okay, well, maybe I should invest in one of those little tiny little oil squirter things. Either way, it's okay. The oil is pretty much going where it needs to go, so that's good. I'll just have to make sure I dry this up real quick before we add our sealant. Got a little bit of oil in this gasket there, so I'll dry that up. But other than that, everything has got a little bit of oil on it, so that's good. Okay, so all of my first set of push rods are cleaned. I just started doing the back push rods. So what I'm going to do now, just so I don't really disrupt all this, is I'm going to start walking these over. So we're going to start with this one. This is for cylinder 2, one of cylinder 2s. Very, very important you make sure that these go back in the exact same order you took them out. So cylinder 2 is going to go right there. Now we'll get the other one for cylinder 2. Obviously one of these are for intake valves and the other one's for the exhaust valves. They are two different lengths. You can't really tell unless they're side by side. So if you end up putting the longer one where the shorter one needs to be, then you're going to be in trouble. Now that little peg here on this particular gasket, that is made for this to sit against like that. So that's that. Okay, so I got the first set of rockers in, not tightened down yet. So I just kind of hand tighten them, and you know, I'm not gonna do it on camera, but we're just gonna have to play around with them just a little bit to make sure that the push rods stay where they're supposed to be. There's those little notches on the bottom of the first half of these push rods. You can see there's a little hole there. It's where like the oil pumps through, and then the longer flat side is supposed to make contact with our valve springs. So I'll just have to I'll get those all situated, and then we will torque them down to spec. Alright, so we got our first set tightened down. We just used the wrench or the ratchet to get them snug. And you can, I don't know if you can really be able to tell, but you can see where some of these have compressed down. So the push rods, of course, all of the cams and stuff in there. The timing is basically set to where it was when this car was last running. So when we turned it off and everything stopped, that's the nice thing about this engine, is going back together, everything stays the same as long as you don't mess with anything inside the block. So that's the real nice thing. But we made sure that all of our push rods were nicely connected in their little grooves. And like I said, we snugged them all down. So now we got to torque them. And the torque spec for these, I believe, is 14 foot-pounds from what I read. Yes, so we tighten them to 14 foot-pounds torque. So let's get our torque wrench and take care of that. 14 shouldn't be that much. So probably just do it with one hand. So we got it set to 14, and let's just torque it down. See? So 2 clicks ensures that we are at 14. So honestly, when you snug it up with the ratchet, it really wasn't too far off. So that's good. Okay, 2 clicks. So that's good. I mean, I suppose you could probably just use your hand here to do it, just tighten it down to it snug, but you know, whatever. Okay, down there. That one was already set, so hopefully I didn't like over snug it. Should be okay. Same with that. Okay, so that side's good to go. Let's finish up cleaning the push rods, and we'll get the rocker arms on there and do the same thing. At this point, we got both heads torqued down with the rocker arms and the push rods. Added some more, little more oil on the top of the rockers, especially since I had them in the stuff just in case they weren't 100% dry in there. So we added some water to the top so that way when they start moving, you know, again, they're not really starved for oil. But alright, so this is the part now where we are going to be installing the actual intake. Now at this point we need to put on this black RTV silicone. We need to put it from pretty much the edge of this gasket here, run it over here to this gasket, and then likewise with this. So again, I'm gonna take a clean rag and just make sure there's no leftover dirt or anything. You know, we sanded that part down a little bit when I cleaned the block. And then, yeah. So at this point, it's like the engine is pretty much at the halfway point. Getting all of the accessories on around the engine is honestly what I'm thinking is going to be more difficult, but actually dealing with the engine itself really hasn't been that bad. But trying to get everything else on is most likely going to be the challenge. On a side note, before I get this intake on, I'm going to put my alternator back in that corner because that's what I had to do when I was taking the alternator off. Couldn't get the alternator out because the wiper motor was in the way, the intake was in the way. This stupid bar, which is supposed to come off, somebody did something to this and that nut won't budge. I don't know what they did, so I can't really pull all this out like you're supposed to. So I'm just going to take my alternator and stick it in the corner the same way I took it out, and then that way when it comes time to reassemble the alternator to the car, I could just prop it up and go that route again. But in the meantime, we're going to take our RTV sealant also, put it there, and then we're going to get ready to lay the intake on top. Okay, so there's the sealant going from one side to the other. Really wasn't a whole lot in that tube, but because I need some for these corners here once we get ready to put the valve covers on. So there should be enough left. I'm going to seat that in place now before that silicone dries. Okay, intake is seated in place. You can see it's made contact with the RTV sealant on both sides. So now we just got to start tightening these down. I'm not going to torque them down yet. I'm just going to tighten them down enough. So we have the 4 bolts here, 1, 2, 3s over here, kind of hidden right there, and then 4s over here also. And from there we got that, and then there's 2 bolts that go on the side, which I have to find. I believe they were all 10mm. Okay, so I got the intake torqued down, and I got kind of nervous with the specs that they were giving me. What I tried to use with these in particular, they started getting really, really tight, and the thing wasn't clicking, so I just kind of backed off. But I mean, they should be tight enough. Same with the sides, especially with the ones that you can't really get to with a torque wrench. I had to use an open-ended box wrench, and I just kept going and going and going until I just couldn't get it to move anymore. So I'm assuming it should be okay. And if not, then lesson learned for next time, right? But the sealant's still there, and I just wanted to hurry up and try to get it down as tight as possible before it started to actually cure, which it takes a full 24 hours to cure. So yeah, so it ain't going anywhere. It should be fine. And like I said, if not, then we know for next time. There's honestly not even a 100% guarantee this engine's going to make it long once it's running or together, because all of the stuff that was in this engine already, I don't know. I don't know how long it's gonna last. Alright, so I'm gonna hold off on videoing in a bit. I'm going to, looks like I'm gonna be putting the fuel lines back on, and valve covers, and just a couple of other tidbits here and there. So I'll see you guys in a bit. I've actually come a long way since the last time I've seen you guys. I've literally been out here all day. I just put this motor mount back on the front, which means I had to, crawl under, reattach the AC and the wiring for the AC. So all of that stuff is back in place finally. I wanted to paint all these before they went back on the car, but I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I just want to get it over with. I mean, I could always take them off in the future. It's no big deal. But it's looking better already just with the cleaned up valve covers. The new manifold, the new crossover. Unfortunately, we can't see how nice all of this stuff in the engine looks anymore. It's getting dark, but at least we know there's a lot of clean stuff in there. So both valve covers are on. Got our little sealant there also. You gotta add some of that RTV sealant to those little notches. Ooh, you can see I put a lot on that side. Alright, so that's all done. But I figured before we lower the car, because I don't think I have to crawl under there for anything else at this time, other than attaching the back exhaust, the tailpipe, basically to the back manifold. But since the engine's pretty much all closed up now, let's go ahead and add some clean oil. But I want to get underneath, and I have to remove the, where's my ratchet? Oh, I have to remove the old filter. Well, not that old, but the one that we just put on. 15? I forget what size it is. And then we're going to open the drain plug here. And I just want to see if anything else falls out of this engine before we put anything else in it. So we drained all this out months ago. This car has not had any oil in it. And that way too, it'll kind of give it a chance to I guess sit with clean oil before we run it. So maybe then the stuff that hasn't had oil can kind of sit in some oil. But there shouldn't really be anything in here. Maybe some leftover goop, I don't know. Oh, there's a little bit of stuff dripping. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much of that stuff it just keeps coming out. Ugh. Oh my gosh, I seriously just... I hate that. I really hope that we can end up eliminating that. Look at how much more is left. I thought we drained all this stuff out of it. I mean, that's been sitting down in there for months. Are we done with the chunks? Hopefully. Alright, well that's good enough for me. I gotta get a towel and wipe this plug off. And then we'll take this filter off. There we go. Alright. See what kind of offal's gonna come out of this. Ooh, just made it. Oh. There. Whew. Still clean, somewhat. Okay. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. You can actually see in the light, like a film. It's different from, you know, once I started dumping it out, and you can kind of see there's some particles and stuff in there. I mean, but for the most part, it's still pretty clean. It's heavy, so I wonder what is in there. Alright, so what's funny is I actually found this old oil filter. It says for Mom's car. It was for the 3.1 V6 in the Lumina that we had, but I never got around to doing anything with it. So this has literally been in my possession for like 14 years, and I don't even think they make them like this anymore, but I cross-referenced them, and it's still the same filter that I can use. I mean, the 3.1s and the 3.4s all used the same filter, and it has this grip on it. So this is good enough for now to, you know, put in this. We're going to be going through oil and filters a lot once we get this thing running. Yeah, it'll be fine. Use that as my seal, actually. So, alright, let me get this in there and we'll add some clean oil. So the car is back on the ground. Man, it's really starting to look nice under here. So I know because the car is leaning because of this extremely flat tire, you know, the level's going to be kind of cattywampus, but we know it's going to get 4.5 quarts of this, and I'm thinking maybe about a half a bottle of the seafoam to start off with. But then that way, the clean oil with the seafoam, I mean, the seafoam probably won't do much because it's not running, but then that way, you know, everything will kind of sit that hasn't had oil for a while, and this car is going to run this week. It may run tomorrow. I'm kind of running out of daylight. I wanted to go a little further. I thought I was going to get a little further than I did today, but at the same time I got further than I was also expecting, so I don't know. It's a really weird thing. Just now. That might be good. Yeah. Alright, so hopefully that'll do some wonders in the long run. Other than that, she's really starting to come together. I was really hoping I'd have it running today, though. Alright, well, it's getting dark. I got stuff I gotta clean up, so I might as well call it a day. And I'll pick up with this somewhat tomorrow after work, which only gives me a few hours, but a lot can maybe be done in a few hours. Good morning, guys. So, it has been exactly 1 week as of right now, since I started finally putting everything back together on the Aztek. The heads were put on 1 week ago today, and throughout the entire past week, you know, when I've been coming home from work, I've been trying to work on it little by little, just because daylight is very scarce this time of year. So I only have like an hour each day, and you know, really didn't run into too many issues putting things back together, surprisingly enough. Not yet. But as of right now, we're about 80% complete with this job. However, there is one thing I have to redo, so that sets me back to maybe like 75%. Let me show you guys where we left off. So I have to put this right side motor mount on. This is what I kind of have to redo. But the thermostat hose and housing are in the way, so I have to take the thermostat housing off again. The problem with the thermostat housing, one of the issues I had, is this back bolt, and maybe we can try to correct it now, but I couldn't get it to turn in. I mean, I tightened this one up really good, actually maybe a little too good, because I think it started chewing away, so that's not good. But maybe we could try to get that back in place. This is for the driver's or passenger side motor mount, dog bone, and this is where we are so far. So the engine is 100% sealed up. We just have to get all of the other accessories on. Also, I was working on getting this brand new crossover pipe on for the coolant bypass tube. But it has to sit lower, and it actually runs underneath this hose and underneath the engine mount anyway, so I was gonna have to take that off regardless. So yeah, kind of dirtying up my plenum a little bit, but I can kind of resand it once we're done. Everything else seems to look really good so far, though. I got the alternator on. There's one bolt left, which I left right here. This is for the side right here in the very back up against the firewall, and I did buy a ratchet strap, so I'm going to pull the engine forward. You know, getting that alternator off was a pain, dealing with the firewall and how tight it is up against there, and well, we're not really getting anywhere with getting that bolt in there with the engine without it being forward. Now the one that's right there, that one I got in no problem, and actually got it in by hand tightening it. It actually went in really easy. So yeah, another concern that I have are my new power steering lines, and I knew that these were going to be an issue. I had to disconnect my return line again to get the pump to sit in place and fasten down. But I also do not like the way those lines are sticking out, and I have a feeling that they're going to be in the way of our serpentine belt. So that is something that I'm not thrilled about. I'm gonna try to work on getting everything else put back together today. Today should be the day where it's complete, and then I'll get this side back up, and I won't even put the belt on yet, but I'll see exactly if there's a way I can push those lines in a little further. I just feel like they're sticking out too far to the side, and our tensioner, which is behind the lines, I don't know, I'm just really concerned that the new lines are going to be in the way of that. But everything else on this side is pretty much taken care of. Of course, the plenum and stuff is all tied down. The spark plugs are plugged in to their proper positions in the engine and in the coil pack. The EGR valve, I'm really surprised. It didn't have that big of a problem getting it in as I was expecting. I actually got the bolt in, but I have to tighten it. And then the new bypass hoses, you know, this is a brand new bypass tube, and then the one on the thermostat housing, not awful, but I think these, I don't think they're crimped up or anything, but I just think when I put everything back together back here, I mean, it's not in the exact order yet that it was when I tore everything apart. But regardless, it's all sitting pretty similar. So, what else? What else do I have to do? I think that might be it that I can think of for this moment. So yeah, so I guess what I have to do now is, like I said, I gotta take this coolant hose back off. Well, I don't really have to take the hose off. I just have to. I think I just have to take off the housing, the thermostat housing, and get that motor mount back on this side right here. Tuck this underneath this and the motor mount, and then I can continue going over to that side. Okay, so my alternator is finally in place. This little ratchet strap idea really wasn't too bad of an idea. It's just trying to find a place for it to go where it's not going to rip off. And I don't like the fact that it sounds like something's crunching under here. That's not very good. So hopefully it's probably the paint primer or something, the clear coat cracking or something. But it helped. So both bolts in the back of the alternator are strapped down. Also kind of gave in and bought a set of these little stubby ratchet wrenches, and these helped greatly in that predicament back there. So they're just long enough to get in there, and with the ratcheting side, you don't have to worry about taking this off of the bolt. It worked out nicely. As you can see, the coolant bypass tube is down. Still kind of sitting funny, but then again, everything's still kind of cattywampus right now. I think one of the next steps is to get the throttle body on, which there's two hoses that connect to these, and this bolts onto this actually, but we won't be dealing with that until we get the throttle body on. And my God, I think we're coming to the end of this. Got to put all the wiring harness back together. This, months later after disconnecting all this stuff, this looks very intimidating. But luckily, lengths and certain sized connectors and stuff, we should have no problem getting these back on. I know this one right here, this goes to the O2 sensor. So that goes right back there where that little white thing is. Yeah, that thing back there. So I know that goes there. One goes to the coil pack. Another one on this side goes to the coil pack. Alternator gets plugged into this. God, there's still quite a few. The big harness here. But yeah, we're coming to the end of this, guys. We are. I can't believe it. It's like finally happening. It's a dream come true. So as I mentioned, when I originally took the throttle body off, ew. It definitely needs a cleaning. It's not going back on like this. This is disgusting. So this is the intake side where, well, I shouldn't say intake, but this is where the air goes in from the air snorkel. And this is the side that's connected to the plenum. You can just see all the really bad oil gunk and carbon and all that stuff. Plus this gasket, which we're taking off also. And we're going to have to sand this down a little bit. So I had to buy another bottle of this. I had a can of this a while ago. I had to use it for the Grand Prix, and I don't know what happened to it. Sheesh. So I'm going to go with the throttle body cleaning. I got my handy toothbrush to try and break some of this up, and then a clean mechanics rag to, dry it off and try to wipe everything off. So, ooh, this stuff burns, guys. If it gets into any of your cuts, yikes. Oh, yeah, that's actually working better than I thought it was going to. What? Why does that look like it says W or M? Strange. That's like imprinted on there. Okay, I'm probably really gonna need 2 hands to get this done. So. Getting there. Alright guys, so here's the finished product. Look at how much of a difference that made. So this is the air snorkel side, and this is the actual plenum side, and look at how much better. Got majority of all that nasty carbon and crust off. Even if you open the butterfly, you can see, try to get all the actual sides of it, tried to get rid of the majority of the ring that sits around it. Oops. So yeah, it looks a lot better. Also, you can see this side is ready for the gasket. I sanded it off, got a lot of that nasty corrosion and stuff off. So it's ready to go back on. Alright guys, so we are in the home stretch finally, for sure. The vacuums and stuff are being disconnected, or being connected as we speak. I now have to get the air filter cover and snorkel. Also, we did buy a new air filter. I was originally going to buy a new air filter, but then I was thinking maybe just using the old one, but we kind of destroyed it with all the stuff that was sitting in the car. Yeah, so, and it wasn't in the best shape anyway, but I just figured for the time being, but I'm not going to put it back in there like this. So we'll pitch this one, and we are also, stuck. We are also going to clean the mass airflow sensor, which is this contraption right here. And there it is, our sensor's in there. So we're going to be doing that also before we throw it in. And for that, you want to use specific mass airflow sensor cleaner. Don't use anything else. It is a very delicate sensor, and you don't want to use anything other than that cleaner. That cleaner, dries quick. And yeah, so don't want to use anything other than that for that sensor. Before I put this on, I was kind of admiring, this contraption here. I mean, the air duct is under there, the air cleaner goes here, and the boxes, or the cover and the snorkel go here, but like, what's the deal with this? And kind of seen, the wire coming out, so I decided to undo the 2 bolts at the top, and I think that's all that might hold it on. Got it. I just had to use a screwdriver. It opens. I don't want to have to take anything else off. I think does this have to pushed in somehow, I think. Ooh, I wonder if that's the computer. That might be one of the brains to the car. See, I probably need to take this bar off, and I don't want to do that. But from the looks of it, I can only assume I see wires and stuff. That is probably either maybe PCM or BCM. I think one of them is in the car actually too, under the center console. I can't get the back part off. I probably have to fling it up all the way, and I don't want to deal with that. Oh well, I'll put the bolts back on. I was kind of wondering what was under there. Man, I love doing this. Let's compare. Old, disgusting air filter. New, perfect air filter. Oh, I love doing that. Alright, so the air filter's back in, the air snorkel is back on. kind of difficult. I actually removed just the snorkel piece, put the cover back on, and then fought with this. Plus, this is still disconnected from when we were working on them, and that's probably going to be in the way of a lot of things. So I kind of had to mess with that to get this out of the way. And I'm kind of concerned about this back PCV because it won't stay in, and it's actually a pretty disgusting piece. I don't know if this is going to stay in that slot or not, but it's supposed to go here. And I knocked this out too. It's got to stay in there. I hope that stays in there. And I'm gonna try and get that back there in the valve cover again, and hope that it stays. And then I gotta put the throttle cables back on and then hook all the sensors up. Oh my gosh, it's done pretty much. Alright guys, so this is it. This is the finished product, minus the belt for now. And the power steering line still has to be connected and possibly moved out of the way. And the coolant reservoir that goes here, I ran the hose back over and disconnected it, but it's in the basement. I'm trying to clean all the gunk out of it. But everything else is plugged in. Everything else is all wired up. I gotta find like a zip tie or something. These shouldn't be sitting that high. Clip the wiper arm up there, but yeah, now I did find one issue, and it's gonna set me back a little bit. I'm not happy with this at all. I'm hoping maybe I can find some solution out of this, but I don't know. So got everything back on, got my brand new coolant bypass tube hooked up, and came to notice I have an extra coolant hose here. Where does it go to? There's nothing around here that it goes to. Well, it turns out my old coolant bypass tube has the specific oil cooler outlet on it. And the new part is missing that outlet. So I called a good friend of mine who is a mechanic, and he said I'm either going to have to return this and get that one, or I can go the way of just eliminating the oil cooler system, period. And to do that, I would probably have to at least, I guess this isn't so bad, I would have to take the exhaust manifold off again. These stupid dog bone mounts have to come off, but we can take off the exhaust, or just this manifold, and we'll be able to get to the oil cooler. And he said I'm gonna have to like maybe go to the junkyard and find a way to convert this over to the non-oil cooler. But I was also wondering if my very crafty friend could maybe drill a hole in this and weld that little piece onto that, and maybe I could just have my own, because I mean either way it's going to be a pain. I can either take off the exhaust manifold and get to these oil cooler tubes from there and do what needs to be done, or I can take off this bypass tube, take all of this stuff back off, and fight with getting it off of the heater core hose. And either way it's a losing situation. But other than that, guys, everything is done, and I must say it does look at least look a lot better than it did when I first got it. So I'm gonna call it a day for now. I did everything I wanted to do for the most part, and I'll update you guys here in a bit.